Hello everyone, I am Dr. Roma, Assistant Professor at Dr. Ambedkar Chair for Social Work, Niswas, Bhubaneswar, India. Today I'm going to present on everyday practices for a new social world as part of this global online summit on co-building a new eco-social world, leaving no one behind. Steering principle of my presentation is Ubuntu, togetherness, and community. Why is it important to recognize these practices of doing good? Because I think there was no clear information on how to deal with COVID-19. This was a period of fear and anxiety, yet there were people who came out despite the risks. They were not just doing charity, they were doing acts of good, but they were also acts of courage. The learning that I got was that these people were not thinking of themselves first, but thinking of others. So they were doing it out of empathy, empathy that we know as social workers, one of the basic principles, and also a great lesson at any age for all ample examples of goodness from around the world. I'm sharing a few glimpses of these through some of these visuals on the screen being prepared in and food being distributed by Sikh community through what is known as community kitchens and langars, and the other one is where dry food is being packed for distribution by some Muslim people in community. And what I would like to say is that food, though we know as nourishment, is not nourishment just for the body here, but a nourishment for the souls of people, a nourishment which connects people together. A picture, which I'm also sharing this is from other parts of the world, not India, but I picked up these pictures because they were quite saying the thing that I wanted to say. So, of course, there were scenes of people raiding stores, and but there are also scenes where, or there are also visuals of people filling their local sharing nooks. This poster, someone had done it saying, "We are all in this together." So these are some of the visuals that helped me also, come in terms with this difficult time. And there were so many other examples. So I'm going to share some of them. And I also want to understand this theoretically. So what I have done, uh, I started with this question: who are the people who come to help? In the first people to come to help, and especially in times of disasters. It is local people, people around us. And that's when the state is not present, state is absent. State takes some time to understand what has happened and to respond. Uh, and how do they help? Because they are also going through the same problems. And I found the theory of cognitive reframing quite helpful in this. I feel that the reframing theory that says that frame through which a person looks at a particular situation can differ from person to person. And it is the frame that you look at a particular situation. It helps you to respond to the situation. So, and the shift in the frame would help you to change the way you behave or change the way you see the situation. So this is a very simple technique that we have used in social work, in our counseling, in our problem solving, and this is also something traditionally being used for helping practices. And with that, if you take up the idea of coping with a disaster or a difficulty, the idea of resilience. So resilience is the ability of a person to withstand adversity and bounce back. Uh, so what I felt that these two, if we use these two, and then if you want to look at some of these acts, it will be easier for us to grasp what was happening around us. So during the World War II, and I'm looking at the work of Viktor Frankl here, who not just survived the Holocaust, but also, if you read his work, Man's Quest for Meaning, he had the faith that he would be reunited with his loved ones, especially his wife, And each day of trauma, he went through each day with the belief that there is meaning or purpose in his life. It here, bring in here, the meaning of life is to be discovered in the world rather than within man or his psyche, as though it were a closed system. So it is in being interconnected. It is in not just in our own minds, but being connected with others in the world where we have meaning or purpose in life. Very quickly now, I'll bring into the picture in India, March 24th, 2020, the first wave of coronavirus. India announced lockdown, and millions of migrant workers were left without jobs and very little resources. The public transport has also been suspended, so many of these migrant workers started walking back to their villages. Of course, they were risking their lives, they were risking police atrocities, hunger, and summer heat. So one of the very famous now, Sonu Sood, he's a Bollywood actor. He, along with his one of his childhood friend, they decided to help out migrants, and by organizing buses for them for their travel back home, they organized food and water for their journey, and more people started calling him for help, as well as there were many other Bollywood actors, producers who started helping him, who started joining in without, coming out in the open. This also shows that when one person arises, others follow in, and there is optimism and resilience is equally contagious. The other story that I wanted to bring here today is how different group of people behaved. Migrant workers in the city of Surat, which is also a big industrial hub in India. They wanted to go home. They were lathi charged by the administration when they were protesting. Similarly, women from the city, they started cooking extra food in their homes and helped NGOs to pick this food from them and distribute it to whoever needed it, including the migrant workers. And women felt that even by doing this little bit every day, they were doing their bit in the temporary hospital with the help of the government. So we see that the range of behavior from anger, mobilization, fear, helping out, networking, all these are different ways and different human beings cope up or came up to cope up with the disaster. And there were many people remain unknown also. And there I would like to say that these may not have come into newspapers, these may not be reported, but then people started recognizing and valuing the work of those who are generally unseen, the sanitation workers, frontline workers, nurses, doctors, social workers. People went out of their way to provide for and look after those around them, not just neighbors and friends, also unknown people then they don't know, strangers, completely strangers. And this is the new way. Older people were much more calm. Younger people looked up to them, and they learned so much, especially because in the lockdown, young children were home with their grandparents and with the parents, and they were learning new things, learning new ways of connecting to nature, to people around them. And this is a big learning because this shows that we are in it all together. We are all connected, be it plants, be it animals. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that COVID-19 gave a new lease of life to these everyday practices of doing good, which shows that disasters can also bring the best out of us. And much of these practices are part of the cultural repertoire of communities and point towards the older and stronger ties with nature and surrounding around us. Able to understand that uh, we cannot leave anyone behind, that development would only be possible when all are in it together. And I would also like to say that we have to overcome the old barriers of social inequalities, of class, gender, but also nationality, geographies, which I think has come out very well in this call for a new social world. And we need to reframe our policies and rebuild an understanding of what a new frame where everyone wins and not just one side. Thank you so much. And I would like you all to please share your views on this presentation.